All right. This is tough, but total truth. I am the oldest of 10 children. I have had to step in and take the mother role too many times. But one in particular act of me stepping into that role destroyed my life as I knew it. So, my first time married, just 21 years old then, what seemed the perfect life. I had two children and I was in college. He was in the military, out to sea after often, sorry. But I was able to parent my then 6-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son. They even offered classes online that I could take, at my own pace. I began studying child development because I thought it would help me at home, and it did. I had also taken some nursing classes, trying to figure out what I liked better. I got a call while my then husband, was out to sea from the captain of the ship saying, my husband was being life flighted. Um, I said, life flighted. He said, for loss of a limb. I repeated for clarity and asked, well, what limb? What did he lose? And he said, well, that is classified. It's best you get to the base in North Carolina and meet him at the hospital. He was not even flown into Virginia, it was the state over. I know I drove above the speed limit then to get there, and he was in surgery when I arrived. Only after he was in recovery, I learned what, limb was lost. It was half his index finger. These days, it would be labeled more like, missing a piece of a digit. But anyway, he began the dramatics for attempt in right away. Me and the doctor, I'll never forget, eyed each other then, uh, at each other, and then him acknowledging, the same. Of course, I did my best, though, to care for him after taking him home, but it began clearly pretty soon how much he was going to use this injury as a crutch, or at least attempt to. The excuse of pain, to be afraid to go back to work. Even after healed, he began to drink and even mix his pills. He was slipping away. I can see that now looking back. Somewhere along that time, simultaneously, I got word that my then 13-year-old sister was running the streets. My mother was binging again and disowned her, like many of us. So I made the decision to offer her to come and live with me. Nothing, I tell you, could prepare me, though, for what happened next. I did not rehearse, this then, and I don't have to now. I would just literally, tell you what happened. I struggle a little bit with words when something's uncomfortable to speak about, but just know when you hear this, you'll see why. So she took a Greyhound to Virginia, where I was. I first took her to the emergency room, good call, because she was promiscuous and told me she wasn't just using drugs and having sex, but even the two boys she had met on the bus on the way over. During the 2 days travel she had been with as well. So the doctor did a full exam, including blood tests. At this point, I had to accept that the hard way, even that I was no longer just her sister anymore, but I was now becoming her legal guardian. A paper was filed in San Diego before she left, and then I was told to get her military benefits through the Navy, and she becomes, a dependent of the military and also of me and Cliff, my then ex husband. The first blow was the doctor telling me she was positive for gonorrhea of the throat. I was stunned and blurted out that can only happen if she performed oral. That was tough to support. and make sure, though, that she got the RX she needed, even set up her care. We were told it was 30 days for her to be active dependent, right? But yet the insurance part of it was going to backtrack and cover her. So during that time, I began getting her education started, and the help she clearly, needed. I also enrolled her in regular high school, but it was clear it was not going to work like the first week. Her behavior was out of control, and I was told she needed a program. She first, I took her to a day treatment facility. I That only lasted a week though. So then I decided to take firm advice to put her in a short term residential program because she had a lot of issues, including bipolar and trauma, plus, coming away from substances and things. So they said they could get her stabilized, then she could switch to a day treatment. Before she started that program, the following week, she was at my house and even at my neighbor's house, accepting a babysitting job for her kids, offering her a little bit of cash for doing it. And of course, she accepted. She made a point, though, to tell my friend um, that she was my um, almost in a victim state because she was, quote, being raped, by my husband. So the neighbor came over and told us, she, as a married woman, first telling me with Cliff present and her first asking him if it's true. Then me asking right then, him in front of her, are you, and he said no. I don't remember the specifics of then, but it was a discussion and him ending it by giving a firm no, I am not. I thought she really needs help then, especially saying something like that. And him saying it is not even true, right? I took her to the residential facility to be admitted. I mean, immediately, probably that day. I was called in to come have a counseling appointment with her, though, a few days later. That day, with the therapist of the facility, me and her were to discuss goals and issues to be resolved. She was mad at me, clearly for putting her there. That was, evident. But at some point, she blurted out, "So you are punishing me for having sex with your husband by putting me in this place." The male therapist excused her and told her to go to her room to calm down. Um, then the therapist pulled his chair a little closer to me and began to speak very slowly but firmly to me. He seemed very compassionate because he was suddenly so worried about me. He said, "I see how much you want to help her, and you are taking a lot on by also being a mother of two young children, but trying to play that role for her as well. But I got to tell you that what she said has to be reported. I am mandated. She is a minor, and this is a serious allegation about your husband. I think it was paramount, or no, he told me he thought that it was paramount that I get to the bottom of this, where the truth is. So, who's telling the truth, what side you should actually be on because an investigation is going to be made. Social services will soon be at your door step, and I just want to urge you to be prepared and certain of the details. Again, he said, I urge you to find out what the truth is for yourself and your children. I left in a daze driving home that day. I don't even know how I got there, but what he said kept replaying in my head, basically. When I got home, I picked up the phone and called Cliff at work on the base. I said, we have to talk now. I can come there or you can come here. I said it so firmly that he only answered, I am coming there now. Before he could say anything else, I hung up the phone. I sat and waited only a few minutes. He came in saying, "What is it?" I said, "Have a seat. I went over, I'm sorry, to the wall unit and actually picked up the Bible. And I simply opened it and set it on the living room table between us. And I sat on the adjacent couch next to him and looked at him, saying, "You know, God says we should be accountable for our sins. So I am going to ask you again because my 13-year-old sister is not just starting a rumor with a neighbor, she is now telling her therapist, a mandated reporter, that I must just be punishing her for having sex with you by putting her into a facility. So tell me, how crazy is she really? Um, what happened? Did you kiss her? Did you touch her? Where is any of this coming from?" But then he blurted out, "I did it." I said, "You did what?" He said, "I had sex with Brianna." And I said, "You did what?" And then he repeated it. And I said, "You did what?" I remember rising from the couch and I said, um, "Do you know what that makes you?" I know I got louder. "So having an affair isn't enough. You have also upgraded to a child molester." I don't remember, what other 31 flavors I began to say to him, but it was enough for him to pull a pathetic stunt. He goes into the kitchen grabbing a knife and lamely holds it to his wrist. I said, "Oh no, I'm not going to let you be a coward for this one." I grabbed the knife from him and put it back in the knife block. He grabbed it again. When I went to retrieve it again, this time he tried to wrestle me for it. I said, "Now you want to play games." Um, so I got the phone and dialed 911 and simply said, "There's a man here with a knife," and then hung up, knowing I was in and on base housing. They arrived in what felt like 30 seconds, and at first they assumed he was like an intruder, so they came clearly armed. I said something to the effect of, "You better take this coward away that just confessed to being a child molester, that now wants to fake suicidal. He is better off with you because I'm getting ready to bash his head in." And as I said that, it was because I had glanced at the corner of my eye, seeing the kid's big plastic orange, baseball bat. So they realized it was a different scenario, domestic, not intruder. But they did quickly, take him away and even were understanding to my position under the circumstances, for which was clearly helping to paint the picture, with my mouth. Then the bigwigs of the military showed up to sit on my couch just after, like, I forget who, maybe a sergeant and a major general or something. They were very polite to me, getting a statement, almost paternal, I'd say, like because of the circumstances. I think they arrived just after the incident. His job had also even called me to ask if he was coming back to work. And I remember saying something like, "No, he isn't, because he is a effing child molester that is already on his way to jail where he belongs." I have to believe you can try to understand or at least empathize with this side of me that was coming out or had come out, right? He literally lit a match, though, and gaslit our life as it was without a second thought. Then he didn't even show remorse. He only continued feeling more sorry for himself. The voicemails days later from him were pathetic. My favorite one was the one where he said, "I tried to jump out the window earlier today, so they upped my meds because I knew he was on the first floor of the building and there was bars in the window." When his therapist called to schedule, a session with him, I said no because I know he is faking. It was a woman, and she told me how much she felt for me and my children, having to go through this. Then, after a few months of him receiving his treatment, he stood trial and was court martialed with charges of both adultery, which is still a punishable crime in the military, and consenting sex with a minor. Since the consenting age in Virginia, then anyway, 14 years old, and she was just under the mark. He then was put on a no pay status while serving his time before he was then given a bad conduct discharge. Yes, no pay status meant me and his kids could no longer count on him or even the military for support. Um, my grandma, Moran, I remember, flew in and she was physically by my side. Right there to help me, through it, the hearings and the whole ordeal. So, anyway, thanks for listening. Talk to you guys soon, okay? Take care. Bye.